Hello and welcome to When and Why Should I Upgrade? Enhanced Microsoft 365 Apps and Features. Today we're going to discuss something that is confusing and on top of that it changes on a semi-regular basis. And so we're going to try and create some clarity for all of you out there relative to if you're leveraging Office 365 or Microsoft 365 and you're thinking about it, how can we help you optimize what you're actually spending? So even though the title suggests upgrade, which then sometimes implies spend more, we are also going to touch on items where it might make sense for you to spend less. Ultimately, that's what we want you to understand is just the different features and capabilities that you need that are determined by the different roles in your organization so that you can optimize your Microsoft 365 licensing, as well as consider maybe some upgrades or some options that if you didn't know that were there, that's something that you could take advantage of and understand that a little bit better too. Okay, so let's take the next step, which is when and why should I upgrade? So we are going to review discuss the different features and capabilities of the Microsoft 365 that are not included in the basic licensing. So we're going to start there. That's really going to be a good place to start from a standpoint of where is this, because most people have the basic, most organizations have the basic licensing, and so understanding, well, what's the next step? So we're going to talk about the key differences between those. We're also going to review, there's two, and you'll see, really three, thank you Microsoft, and I'll explain that later, core licensing groups, but really two core licensing groups that we see most of our clients leveraging and adopting, and as well as then we're going to dig into some different business scenarios that we've encountered across our clients to help explain different business cases for the various plans that are available to you. Finally, we're going to then touch on some recommended next actions and how we might be able to help, and then open it up for some Q&A at the end. So as well as some of the resources that we're going to show today, we're happy to share in the follow-up email that everyone will receive, as well as we proceed here, the Q&A panel is open. So I would highly recommend if you have questions as we proceed, go ahead and enter them into the Q&A panel. And Stephanie, who's also here, which I forgot to introduce ourselves, sorry about that. Stephanie, who's here, will also be staffing that and looking to answer those questions offline, or if not, we'll answer them at the end. By the way, I'm Nate Austin. I'll be doing the most of the presentation today, and we've got Stephanie Kingsley producing behind the scenes. So thanks for helping me out, Stephanie. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. I also like to spend at least 1 minute on my tech, which is, we are a business and technology consulting organization that works with small and medium-sized businesses of 15 to 500 team members and employees. Our goal is that over the last 20 years, in fact, this last Saturday was our 20-year anniversary. So we're now 20 years old, and over those 20 years, we've learned a lot about a proven IT strategy that we know can deliver consistent results for our clients, because ultimately that's what we believe our clients want, is when they make certain investments, they can get consistent results out of them. So ultimately that removes IT challenges for our clients and allows them to be more flexible and adaptable to face the other challenges that we all inevitably face operating and running an organization or a business. So with that all together, our clients achieve 4 times more value in productivity from their IT investments. So if you'd like to learn more about that, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. We'd be happy to have a brief conversation if that makes sense. But otherwise, that's not why you're here today. So let's dig in to the rest of the presentation. All right. 2, and I parenthetically noted, really 3 core licensing groups. Again, I mentioned 2 because that's really the case, but there's another one that gets added in that we believe will A, get some additional traction in the months and years to come, and B, there's some indicators that we think Microsoft might be phasing out one of these groups that we're going to talk about here shortly. So stay tuned for that. Again, I am not Microsoft, and we do not have that visibility and can predict the future in that regard. But we will also, I'll go through this a little bit deeper, but at a high level, I'm going to hit on kind of the key licensing groups and the different suites or packages that you can subscribe. Okay, starting with the Microsoft 365 business, this is what most of our clients fit into this bucket, and they can use this program. There are reasons though, where when you consider the licensing buckets, it's not necessarily just about the fact that you might be under 300 users, because what Microsoft has done is as they've introduced these other plans, the Office 365 enterprise plans, is that it's more about your business need, because there could be reasons why, in fact, we have certain organizations that, for instance, if you have regulatory compliance, that you might need some of the features that are in the quote unquote enterprise plans. So it's not necessarily meaning you have to be a large organization to leverage the enterprise plans. It just means that you might have requirements, operational maturity requirements and or compliance and regulatory compliance or security compliance that might move you, or where the enterprise plans, again, I don't even like the name enterprise because it implies that you need to be a Fortune 500 company or something like that. But that's what they call them, is the Office 365 enterprise plans. So again, it's really about need. And I like to oftentimes use a phrase called operational maturity. This doesn't mean that if you use the business plans that you're not operationally mature. It just might mean that there's certain things about your business that require some complexity, because if you don't need the complexity, we don't recommend putting the complexity there. But if there's certain things that you need the complexity, the enterprise plans might have some better feature sets that could fit your business. So we'll touch on that a little bit more. And finally, this is where I really didn't want to include this, but I feel like I need to, is that there's the Microsoft 365 plans. And yes, thank you, Microsoft, for calling the first set Microsoft 365 Business up here, the second set Office 365 Enterprise, and then the third set, which is kind of more of an up-and-coming one, Microsoft 365, and then they name them E3 and E5 when you also have E3 and E5 up here. Don't blame the messenger, or don't shoot the messenger. I'm just here to try and communicate this and create some clarity for everyone involved. But you'll see that there's this other third plan that's out there. It's more encompassing, and we don't see hardly any of our clients adopting it. But there might be some reasons why you as an organization over time might move down this path. So again, just wanted to make you aware. And a final note before we move on is that this plan, when we found it, to try and look up today, in fact, we'll give you links to all these resources that I'm about to share. However, it was hard to actually find this plan on Microsoft's site. In fact, if you had to really search to find it. So we think, and this is just a heads up, that these plans, while they're still around and they're still valid, and there's a lot of people still using them, that we're thinking that they might phase out over time. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try and use them if you can, if that makes sense for you, because you can adjust these licenses at any time, which is nice. But we see, I think Microsoft is moving in this direction down here, which is why I reluctantly added it to the list. Finally, these little asterisks that I've got here are an important little notation that, oops, sorry about that. Didn't mean to click, I just meant to highlight that this information is as of today, and that Microsoft can and will change this information, which is why I rarely like to put this kind of information in a slide, and I always like to reference the links, the actual Microsoft information. So that is what we're going to talk about a little bit later in this session, but I wanted to give you a high-level overview so that you had at least a glimpse and a summary of the information from a licensing group perspective that might help create some clarity. Okay, so we're going to dig in a little bit more to this information in the demonstration. However, let's start with looking at different business scenarios or business use cases. So these are just very generic. However, these are ones that we find across our clients that are looking to identify what's the right licensing type for their team. The first one is an example. If you have office users that are using laptops or desktops all day long versus those that are maybe operators, like certain medical facilities where people are they might be using a computer to interact with the patient management system or to open up file templates, but they might, or in the field, if they're traveling, maybe they're using more mobile, they might be using tablets in the field, but they might have a different use case than those that are maybe, again, as I move down to the next item, like creators, if you're creating the templates, if you're creating the processes and procedures, versus those that might be just viewing or have limited editing need in their role. And I'll give you an example. One of the organizations we were just working with recently had identified that the folks that were in the latter part of this, in the operator or viewer and or limited editing capability, they had roles in their organization that fit that description. They realized they were probably paying too much for their licensing. They were paying for full-blown Office licenses, which is the full application license that they can install on their machine, but they really would have most likely gotten by with just using the web applications, and that's included in the basic package. So they could potentially save $7.50 per person per month that fit that role. So that's part of the conversation today, is not only just looking at, again, should we be upgrading certain license types by role, or should we be optimizing and potentially reducing the license type if that fits the need. So those are a couple of case studies and examples for you to think through how it might fit your organization. The last two, hitting on trialing or testing, that's actually one of the things I really like about the way Microsoft has built these licenses, is that it's not all or none. You don't have to have all your organization on one license or none. You can actually choose a subset of your team members, especially if you're trying to test something. Let's see if this works for us. Let's see if this might make sense for our organization, or run a trial. You can upgrade a couple people's licenses for a period of time, and if it doesn't work or doesn't solve your need, you can reduce those licenses. And so you only incurred that additional cost during that brief period of time that you might have been trialing or testing the feature. So that's one of the nice capabilities that I like. So think about that and how that might apply to your organization as we dig into the demonstration side here momentarily. Then finally, the other business case that is a key variable that oftentimes applies to organizations choosing different license types is just general security. Because we all have to have a general mindset around security whenever you're talking about technology, versus those that have much more specific and granular regulatory compliance. That could be passed down by clients of yours. For instance, we know that clients of ours have customers that say, hey, we are subject to these compliance, and they're passing that along to you. It could be that you're in the medical field, you're a manufacturer that works with the Department of Defense, credit card security, financial security with broker dealers. There's all kinds of regulatory compliance that's out there, and those organizations oftentimes lean towards the upgraded licenses because there's much more granular and enhanced security capabilities in those licenses as we move up the chain from the small business basic, standard, premium, or the E1, E3, E5 licenses. So those are the business cases I'd like you to think about, and which one may or may not apply to you and your organization, or which ones may or may not apply to you as we dig into the business and use case scenario. I'll talk through some of the different deltas between the programs and the different licenses. So I'm going to step away from the PowerPoint, and I'm going to open up again, these are the links that we will provide to you. So I'm just going to touch base at a high level here, the difference between these two. So some of the key variable that moves you from the basic plan to the business standard plan is really the ability to download the Office suite, these right here, to multiple devices, up to 5 devices per user. So that is one of the biggest differences between this plan and this plan. And if you go back to that first business case that I mentioned, is that you might have full production Office users, and you might have those that are just either in the field or operators. And this does allow them to, again, notice it says web and mobile versions included, so they can actually access Word and Excel and PowerPoint included on the web browser. They just can't download the actual applications onto their local computer. So if you have folks in your organization that fits their role, they need limited editing capability. And I say limited, forgive me, limited is such that you can nearly do everything in the web browser version when you're editing Word and PowerPoint and Excel, nearly. But there are certain capabilities that I find as someone who does create documents that I just like the application better. So you'll know best what that fits, what that means for your organization, and what it might mean for those roles. And the other thing that you could try Again, it's very easy to change these licenses. So if you feel like there's some test users or pilot users where you could say, hey, we're going to try downgrading your license from the standard plan to the basic plan, and let's see if editing or doing what you need to do with Word and Excel and PowerPoint in the web browser works for you. If it doesn't, you can just change those back. That's the example of being able to trial versus the production. So that's one of the basic differences. There's also in the small business, or in the business packages, excuse me, it used to be called small business plans, it's not anymore. In the business package, there's a couple tools called Microsoft Bookings and MileIQ. And MileIQ is just a web app to help you track mileage, or not a web app, a mobile app, excuse me, to allow you to track mileage. And Bookings is actually kind of a cool thing. I'm going to switch over to it. It allows you to create a calendar, and you can actually allow people to add team members to it. Like, let's say if you're one of the folks that I use my sprinkler. I think the person I used to blow up my sprinkler system, or staff, or help me fix my sprinkler system at my house, my lawn sprinkling system, he uses something like this. I don't know if it's actually Bookings, by the way, but something like this to actually schedule. So on his webpage, say here's some available times, book a time, and it can create automated messages. You can schedule it yourself, so it's kind of some self-service, and then there's automated messages and reminders that you can set, and certain team members you can actually assign to manage it. So there's some cool things you can do from some calendaring capabilities where you can enable your clients or customers to schedule things on your calendar, especially if that's something you do with your clients. So Bookings and MileIQ is something that's on there, and I'll scroll down to that. I'm trying to remember where it is. Forgive me. I had it. Darn it. I thought I had that built out. I try to highlight only the things that are key differences, so forgive me. It's in here. But then when you go from, I'm going to come back up here again. So when you go from standard to premium, there's a couple things that are different too. So again, and one of the things that you'll find is going from the middle tier program to the more advanced program or suite is really around security. Again, that goes from where if you're a general security operator, if you need general security versus a little bit more advanced security, or if the nature of your operations requires a little bit more complexity or maturity to it from a compliance or even just intellectual property that you're trying to maintain, going towards the premium plan is one of the things that might be a good scenario for you to consider. You can do things with what they call information rights management, when you can control access to information and do things like applying restrictions to not copy, or you can't forward this information, it can't leave your organization. It also falls into the category of data loss prevention, where you want to have this information available to your team, but they actually can't even download it on a mobile device and put it on an unauthorized app on a phone, for example. So there's different controls that you can employ on your data where your team might have access to them, but the system itself will make sure that they can't forward it either intentionally or unintentionally outside of your environment, or save it to unauthorized applications. It might be mobile applications. So it's a little bit more granular control that you have from a security perspective when you move to the premium plan under the business program, as well as there's some additional mobile device advanced mobile device management capabilities if that's something you're looking for. So, but the biggest thing that we see is just more enhanced security that's delivered through what they call Intune down here, and so this Azure Information Protection. This basically delivers advanced security in that licensing. So that's the business plans. Again, Microsoft renamed this recently. It used to be called Office 365 Small Business Basics, and they just called it Microsoft 365 Business, and then Basic, Standard, and Premium. So we're going to move over to the enterprise plans, and there's similarity to them. However, you will see some different prices and some slightly different feature sets. So I'm going to move to the Office Enterprise, and I can tell you that this is the page that was difficult to find. For instance, if you come up here and navigate, I'm not going to do it, navigate over here to enterprise plans and pricing, this link actually takes you to this other page, which is that third licensing group that I mentioned. But we see a lot of our clients actually using this suite when they're moving and when they need a little bit more granular controls and compliance and feature sets. So similarly, the basic E1 plan here is very similar to the small business, or the business basic plan. So notice it's $3 more a month, but the feature set is nearly identical. Again, nearly identical. And but what you get from going to E1 to E3 is you get, again, the Office application. So you're actually subscribing to the Office applications, again, that you can install on up to 5 devices per user. And you get the data loss prevention. So you don't have to go all the way to the E5 to get some of the additional security controls. So that might be an example of where going here might make more sense at the E3 plan than the small business premium plan. Again, this is why we're here to help, but each unique circumstance for each organization will have a different answer. So that's why we want to try and go through this, as well as help you when you're trying to go through this. So once you go there, there's, again, data loss prevention and some additional legal compliance and archiving. And then once you move from E3 to E5, that's where you start getting things. And I'm going to scroll down here. Again, it notices that at this, I wish it kept it up at the top, but it doesn't. So again, this is E1, E3, and E5 columns, because as we scroll down, I want to show you. So one of the things that you get on E5 is phone system and audio conferencing. So the ability to provide, basically use Teams as a phone system and have dial-in numbers for audio conferencing and external phone numbers that people can dial that you can then access via, basically use Teams as a soft phone. That is an E5 license. So that is one of the capabilities that exists with difference between E3 and E5. The other point as I scroll down, because again, you can see all these are basically the same, but if you go down to advanced analytics, one of the things that does not come with, at least included in the bundle, is Power BI Pro. So if you want to be able to leverage the capabilities of Power BI, then Power BI Pro is included in the Office E5 Enterprise SKU. The other thing that you can do with Power BI Pro, and I'll mention in the phone system, and I have this up here, is that you can also add Power BI Pro for $9.99 per person per month. So if you have a different plan and you don't want to go all the way to the E5 suite SKU, you can actually just add Power BI. So that was one of the other things that we see a lot of our clients doing, is that they really like Power BI, but they don't feel like they need to go all the way to the E5 SKU. You can actually add that on for $9.99 per person per month. The other one, that's if you can add on some voice capabilities to the business suite for $20 per person per month, but chances are it might make more sense to not add this on. It might make more sense to jump right to this E5 SKU where the phone system is included down here from a pricing perspective. So again, these are different ways you can possibly accomplish that, but oftentimes the going down the suite bundle might be a better fit for you, because for instance, if you go to the E5 SKU, not only are you getting the phone system and you're getting Power BI, but if you add those separately, you're already at $30 per person per month. So I'm going to keep going down, because basically some of these capabilities of threat protection, and it's basically some of the advanced security. Notice it's not included. It's not included here. This has some partial inclusion, but it's fully included, the app security here. There's just additional security and more granular controls that exist in the E5 plan. So that's where we have found that clients of ours who have gone this path, it's because they started oftentimes with the security, or they also looked at, well, gosh, I'd like to be able to provide an audio dial-in number, or I want to consider Teams as my phone system. And or they might also be looking at Power BI. And when you start looking at those individually, as far as some of the different add-on components, it made a lot of sense for them to bundle that and just say, well, let's just get all of this as part of the bundle. And so Microsoft's pricing intentionally does that. So it might make more sense to do this. But those are some of the key capabilities as far as why you might look at individual roles to upgrade, or the entire organization to upgrade, depending on what you're trying to accomplish across your team. So again, you can mix and match these, so you don't have to have everyone on E5 or everyone on E3 or everyone on E1. You can mix and match those, but no, and you also can mix and match between the business plans and the enterprise plans, but no, if you're trying to take advantage of some of the advanced security capabilities or the phone system capabilities, the people that are on the business plans are not going to be able to take advantage of some of those additional capabilities. So it can be done, and that might be an example where you're testing or trialing some certain information. But in general, just know that staying within the licensing group, that's why I started with the licensing group conversation, might make a lot of sense. Okay, so now we basically hit on that, and I'm going to provide an eye chart here momentarily, which is we have basically worked internally to try and figure out, and again, this changes, so trying to keep this up to date is sometimes challenging, but we put the different, so this is the business suite, this is the Office 365 Enterprise, and this is the M365, that third group that we were talking about that exist. And so it tries to put down in much more granular detail in a shorter order of this information on one page. We're happy to share this for anyone who wants it, but it's one of those things that helps us walk our clients through what's the right fit in a little bit more granular capability. Of course, we also have engineers that understand some of the nuances of when you read mobile device management. Well, what does that really mean, right? Or some of these more advanced capabilities, what does that really mean? There's some different roaming settings and group policy, things like that, that we can help you identify if that's something that meets a need that you've professed or noted. But I just wanted to mention that we put this together, and that's something that we're happy to share if anybody wants it. But otherwise we'll provide the links to all of this information as well. So we'll provide the links to this page, and this page for your reference, so that you can look at those if that would be helpful or beneficial. Okay, with that said, now we covered kind of the high level of why to upgrade. And so we're going to get back to that. One of the things here's the recommended next steps. One, we strongly recommend that if this is something that you feel there might be opportunities here, review your Microsoft 365 or Office 365 enterprise licenses. Really identify if you have opportunities to either reduce licenses. For instance, if you feel like you've licensed the Office suite to those that really don't need it because they might be able to get by with just the web version of those tools. Well, maybe there's an opportunity to reduce some licenses, or look at different roles in your organization where it might make sense to increase. Like for instance, if you're trying to build out Power BI dashboards, or if you want to have the ability to have a call in, when you create a Teams meeting and have a phone number versus just a link, maybe there's a few people in your organization that you want to give that access to. And then we recommend if you have any questions, we're not trying to just say, here, you're on your own, connect with us, because we've got a lot of experience of helping our clients navigate this, and be happy to help our business management team or advisory team to walk you through it or help you identify the right mix of licenses to fit your need. Happy to help with that. And then of course, we'd love for you to join us at future events and monthly Power User Group sessions at mytech.com/events is where you will find all of that information, as well as a link to past recordings. So those are our recommended next steps for this. So one of the things I always like to say is, if you like this content, we do post this information and update it on Facebook and LinkedIn. So like us or follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn. Also, we post all of our recorded content on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe to any of the YouTube channels that we've created, because you can get access to this information once it comes out, that's one way to do that. As well, for those of you who have to drop off now, I really want to thank you for attending and appreciate you investing your time. And hopefully this was created clarity for you, because Microsoft, I think, does a good job sometimes of confusing all of us, including us, as far as their licensing and what's out there. And for those of you who can stick around, we'd really like to open up to Q&A right now, and this for questions. So thanks for attending, those who have to drop off. And for the rest of you, let's open it up for some Q&A and see if we can dig in and answer any questions you might have around these different capabilities.
Awesome, thanks, Nate. We do have a question here. Someone's asking if they were to upgrade to Power BI Pro, would their coworkers be able to see the functionalities when they share a report with them if they stayed on the free version?
So I think they would not be able to do, from what I understand, and I can follow up with this because I think there's some very specific language that Microsoft uses around this. If you're trying to share and allow people to apply the different filters that are capable in Power BI, they're going to need the Power BI Pro license. If you're just trying to present and have them view a dashboard, I believe the view-only license works. What I'm not sure is if that is a web only, or if they can use because there's a Power BI desktop that is free. So I'm not sure off the top of my head, the view license basically that allow the free allowing to view, but I'm pretty confident that the key difference that you're not going to get if they don't have the Power BI Pro license, again, I think this, Stephanie, let's take this as a mental note to follow up to provide this information definitively, is that they will not be able to do, because Power BI gives you a lot of granular control to filter and segment and look at data and cross sections and manipulate it, and they will not be able to do any of that if they don't have the Power BI Pro license.
Awesome. There's no further questions in there right now.
All right. Well, you know, the last thing that I'll say from just a summary of all this information is that you can mix and match these licenses, and you can change them as needed. Not that I'm saying you want to go change them all the time, but if you feel like you need to upgrade someone and try it, you can do that for a month or two, and you're only paying the incremental cost during that month or two. If you need to downgrade licenses, you can do that quickly. If someone leaves your organization, you can stop the license. There's all kinds of flexibility that's created here, and ultimately our goal for you is to help you leverage this information and leverage your investments. You're not paying more than you need for your licensing, and you're not maybe not accomplishing something because there's some tools that are available that you don't have access to because you don't have the right licensing as well. So for those of you who are still here, again, thank you for attending live or for watching the recorded version. We hope this content will help you better understand and leverage the investments you're making in IT, as well as to improve organizational communication, collaboration, and security. That's what these tools are designed to do. So please reach out if MyTech can help you or your team with any Microsoft 365, Office 365, or other IT and business related challenges. Until then, we will be working to make IT easy for our clients and our community, and hope that someday you'll be able to join us on that journey. Take care.